Alright, so finishing up some absolute value graphs here. Same as before, just plug in the points that you want to use. I'm going to plug in my points -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. 2 times -2, when I plug that in, I get -4, and -4 plus 5 is 1, and the absolute value of 1 is 1. Okay, when I plug in a -1, 2 times -1 plus 5. I don't know why it's not writing down everything that I want here, but anyway, it's -2. -2 plus 5, which is 3, and the absolute value of 3 is 3. When I plug in a 0, that means that's gone, and I get a 5. The absolute value is 5. When I plug in a 1, 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 5 is 7. The absolute value of 7 is 7. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 5 is 9. So when I go to plug these in, -2, 1, -1, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 7, and 2, 9. Well, this is positive, which means I know eventually in the negative side it's going to have to go up, but where? So I'm going to try plugging in -3. 2 times -3 is -6. Plus 5 is -1, and the absolute value of -1 is 1. So that means I go over 1, 2, 3, and I go up 1. Okay. Then let's try plugging in -4 because it looks like I'm going up. Alright, 2 times -4 is -8, plus 5 is -3. The absolute value of -3 is 3, so that means I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 1, 2, 3. Notice how it looks identical now on both sides. But here's the catch to this one. It does not go straight across. It never goes straight across. It comes down to a V, which means that V is going to probably be somewhere in the midst of all this. So what I'm telling you to do is make a rough guess, right? They're both coming down. Where are they both going to meet at? Roughly about somewhere in there. And there is your graph of your V. This one is, kind of crazy. Of course, I can see why you'd think that. But you would just plug everything in the same. You can always plug numbers in order to figure out what's going on with your problems. I'm going to plug in a lot of negative numbers and a lot of positive numbers. So -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I plug in -4, 3 times -4 is -12. -12 minus 1 is -13. Times a -2 is +26. Already too big, right? I'm in the 26. I can't even graph that. So let's try out -3. 3 times -3 minus 1. So that's -9 minus 1. So that's -10. So that gives me a +10. Times that, that's -20, that's too big. So let's try -2. We plug a -2 in there now. That's a -6 minus 1, so it's -7. The absolute value is 7. That's -14. 14 isn't even on there, so that's too big. So now I try -1. 3 times -1 is -3, minus 1 is -4. That's a +4. 4 times -8, that's too big. Alright, finally 0. 0, -1, so that's -1 inside of there. The absolute value of -1 is 1. So what's -2 times 1 plus 2? Well, that's 0. So there is the first point I can physically graph. 0, 0. Plug in a 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 times -2 is -4. -4 plus 2 is -2. Plug in a 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. 5 times -2 is -10. -10 plus 2, -8. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. That's -16. That's too big. So really, here's all I have. this is what I have. And let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Alright. So this is what I have. We already tried to plug those in and we found out that they were negatives, but when I tried plugging in a -1, as you saw, I'm sorry, because this is negative, you know it's going down. Alright, so we know that, but the point is I tried plugging in a -1 already, and when I did that, that gave me -4, -8 plus -8 plus 2, -6. So -1 worked. -1, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is down there. So here is the V that we get, because we could actually plug in a -1. If we plug in a -1, that is -3 minus 1, which is -4. The absolute value of -4 is 4. So -2 times 4 is -8, plus 2 is -6. So I could graph that, which means it's down here, and the V is going down when I connect those points. Alright, and let me take a look here at some other ones. Trying out this one here quick. Once again, plugging in points. Let's plug in some points here. I'll plug in, let's go with -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and we'll stop right there. -4 minus 2 is -6, which is a positive 6, so half of 6 is 3. -3 is like saying -5, because -3 minus 2 is -5, so it's positive 5, 5 halves. -2 minus 2 is -4, so that's a positive 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. -1 minus 2 is -3, but it's positive because it's in the absolute values, so that's 3 halves. 0 gives me a -2 inside of there. This is a positive 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. When I plug in a 1, I get -1, which gives me a positive 1, so I get 1 half. When I plug in a 2, that's 0. When I plug in a 3, I get 1 half as well. So -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and positive 1, 2, 3. -2, 2. -1, 1 and a half. 0, 1. 1, and then a half. 2, 0. 3, a half. And then you can see that the trend, it starts going up. So once you see the trend, we can see how wide it goes. And once again, we know it's going up in this direction because that is positive. So all this is about plugging and chugging, plugging in numbers and chugging out answers. If you have any other questions or concerns whatsoever, please feel free to let me know.